latest pullout of the Israeli military from the refugee camp in Jenin, I thought, well, what crimes did Israel commit here? Was there any violations of the international criminal court system? What charges could the Israeli government or the Israeli military, the IDF, could face? And over the years, this has been a question on everyone's mind about what has been happening in between the Israelis and the Palestinians in these military encampments and refugee camps over the last 70 years. But lately, this attack in the Jenin refugee camp, where you had these militants who are the only standing defense of the Palestinians, unfortunately, and then you have a standing military, which is backed by the United States and their coalition partners. So I said to myself, I said, I would like to know what type of definitions would meet these type of incidents. What crimes could we basically see Israel facing? But that's a pipe dream. And why? Is because Israel is not part of the Rome Statutes, the International Criminal Courts. They're one of only 6 countries in the world to not be a cosigner. The United States is the other one. North Korea, Iraq, I think 2 other countries I can't name, but those 4 actually. And what I want to show you from their own website, the International Court's own website, about what crimes and their definitions could we read on their page that would meet the definition of what we saw happen these past couple of days in the Jenin refugee camp in Israel. So what I want to do is I want to share the screen and read to you how the court works and the crimes, as you can see. I'm going to blow this up just one more time so this way you can definitely see the text on the screen, because this is really important. And it will actually show you why Israel is not a cosigner, why the United States is not either. You'll find out why. First, the crime of genocide is characterized by a specific intent to destroy in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group by killing its members or by other means causing serious body harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. I guess you can. 28 children so far this year have been killed by the Israeli military under orders of the government. There have been deliberate inflicting of violence upon the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in these refugee camps like Jenin. We also see settler violence, Israeli settler violence on Palestinians. And they are also killing people, random Palestinians. So I think this is a huge issue regarding genocide. These are the 4 main crimes, just one. Second, the international criminal courts can prosecute crimes against humanity, which are serious violations committed as part of a large-scale attack against any civilian population. The 15 forms of crimes against humanity listed in the Rome Statute include offenses such as murder, rape, imprisonment, enforced disappearances, enslavement, particularly of women and children, sexual slavery, torture, apartheid, and deportation. Now we're talking. Okay, so there are a couple of definitions regarding crimes against humanity, different labels. Imprisonment, rape, murder, as you can see here. And Israel has been a violator of a couple of these things, specifically murder, imprisonment, enforced disappearances, and apartheid, and deportation into refugee camps. So when you have a standing military like Israel has, encapsulating its own people, Palestinians are the people. They're in the country. It's not like they were deported there, right? Some of these families have been there for centuries. Same for Israelis. Not everybody's from Russia or the Caucasus. Not all this, if we're not counting, the ardent Zionists, the new ones that are being moved in there. I mean, what is happening here is that you have a government, a truly right-wing nationalist government that has been this way since its inception. Even the so-called moderates, like Ehud Olmert, they're not, truly liberals in any point. They're not left of anything. And you have a country built upon the principles of nationalism and authoritarianism, a mixture of both. And when you have a military encircling its own citizens, putting them in certain areas, or having military checkpoints, well, it's not a democracy. That is indeed the definition of apartheid. And I know that there's a big criticism of, well, it's not like, Ghana or the Sudan. Well, no, but you are also neglecting the fact that you're in possession of being the only country on earth where the military is guarding its own citizens, Palestinians, on racial and religious prejudice. And let's be honest here. I mean, you can't use the defense, we just protect ourselves because the Palestinians have terrorist groups like Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad, right? Give me a break, all right? Not every, this is only to enforce the means that we need this because there's terrorists around. Spare me the nonsense. If you wanted to destroy the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, if you wanted to destroy Hamas, you could do it in a week. Why? They don't have a standing military. They're disorganized. I'm not saying these are just militants who don't know what they're doing. They have some coordination, but they don't have the means or the method to defeat a standing military. I mean, I know Israel's military isn't up to par. They lost to Hezbollah in 2006 in Lebanon. But they also can't come out and slaughter everybody at the same time because you'll have world condemnation. This is the reason why these groups exist. You can always use that as a juxtaposition to enforce these brutal methods on the Palestinians and also gain the favor of the countries that you influence with your political structure. And spare me the anti-Semitism garbage. I'm not an anti-Semite. I never have been. I'm very critical of terrorist groups and world governments. I do it without any bias or prejudice or human influence ideology. I try to report the most honest as I can regarding stories like this. Third, war crimes, which are grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions in the context of armed conflict and include, for instance, the use of child soldiers, the killing or torture of persons such as civilians or prisoners of war, intentionally directing attacks against hospitals, historic monuments, or buildings dedicated to religion, education, art, science, or charitable persons. Well, again, now we're talking because Israel actually sent missiles to the Jenin refugee camp. Imagine missiles, missiles, where you have a people that can't defend against missiles. And how many buildings have they destroyed over the years in Gaza Strip and West Bank? How many homes have been destroyed, razed to the ground, and replaced with Israeli settler ones or Israeli-only ones? How many people have been imprisoned on false charges and kept there for months, tortured? How many schools, how many hospitals have been damaged and destroyed by the Israeli military under orders of the government? Countless. Amnesty International wrote a report, I think, in 2012, and also you have the Goldstone report of 2011 during the Second Intifada that reported, and he was pressured to basically retract his report, come out, criticize it, because Israel is like Scientology, They don't go on the defense, they go on the attack. That's their defense. Their defense is to attack criticism. Where, like the Goldstone Report and Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have come out over the years with their reports, especially after the Second Intifada, where you had reports of the Israel military expending an just an irregular amount, like not normal, like this crazed amount of weaponry. Like I said in the video, the other day, a Palestinian Islamic group or individual will commit an attack, a stabbing, or shooting a homemade rocket into Israeli-owned territory. And in response, the military will overreact. And right away, while they're doing that, you have members of the media basically defending, saying, "Oh, this is because they were attacked." But they won't talk about the overreaction of the Israeli government because they're only just defending themselves. Well, in war crimes, which are the great breaches of the Geneva Convention, here you have a standing military, an armed conflict, one-sided, because the Palestinians, like I said, don't have a military, where you have that military using its local police to enforce the arrest and detainment of Palestinians linked or not directly linked or suspected to be linked to terrorist groups, held against their will, tortured, and kept in prisons for even months and years. And like I said, you have many buildings that were destroyed in the process. Finally, the fourth crime falling within the International Criminal Court's jurisdiction is the crime of aggression. It is the use of armed force by a state against the sovereignty, integrity, or independence of another state. The definition of this crime was adopted through amending the Rome Statute as the first review conference of the statute in Kampala, Uganda in 2010. On December 15, 2017, the Assembly of States Parties adopted by consensus a resolution on the activation of the jurisdiction of the court over the crime of aggression as of July 17, 2018. Crime of aggression? Yes. Like I said, you have one military, Israel, basically enforcing its rule of law on Palestinians who don't have any means of defense. Their integrity, their sovereignty, independence. Now, Palestinians can vote. Palestinians can have groups like the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. They can have representation in the Israeli government, in the Knesset. Do they ever win? Of course not. So they're not really represented. They're believed to be represented. Believed that they have a right or a say. I mean, those rights are being liquidated slowly, so you don't notice the changes. And how do you do that? Well, with the intelligence services and also by the military and local police, under orders of the government, of course. They're not acting on their own. And so I could see all four of those, especially three of the four, where Israel is in violation of the Rome Statutes. Now, why can't they ever be held accountable in the International Criminal Courts? Well, let's read an old article from BBC News. Israel will not cooperate with ICC war crimes investigation because they're not cosigners. This is April 2021, so it's pretty recent. Israel said it will not cooperate with investigation by the International Criminal Court into possible war crimes in the occupied territories. Occupied territories. Let's blow this up just a little bit more. In a letter to the court, Israel says the International Criminal Court is acting without authority in carrying out the probe. The ICC gave both Israel and the Palestinians who instigated the action until Friday to respond. The issue threatens to further damage already strained relations between the two sides. Last month, Israeli authorities canceled the VIP travel pass of the Palestinian foreign minister on his return to the Israeli-occupied West Bank from talks with ICC Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, Palestinian officials said. Based in The Hague, the ICC was set up in 2002 to bring to justice those responsible for the worst crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. It has the power to act where a state is unable or unwillingly, genuinely to do it itself. Well, there you go, right? Israel ain't going to do it. Think they're going to investigate themselves for the crimes that they commit? Hell no. Same thing for the United States. This is the reason why they're now cosigners. The ICC has a duty to explore whether there are insufficient grounds to open a probe when a new member joins, as the Palestinians did in January 2015. Last month, Ms. Bensouda announced that the court would proceed and investigate possible crimes committed by both Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem since June 13, 2014. The date elected by the Palestinians marks an Israeli operation against Palestinian militants and an intensification of violence, which led to a 50-day war in July and August. At least 2,251 Palestinians dead, including more than 1,462 civilians, according to the United Nations, and 11,231 injured on the Israeli side. 67 soldiers and 6 civilians were killed, with scores more wounded. As you can see, one-sided. Anywhere else, my friends, anywhere else in the world, and I mean it, no exaggeration, this would be world news. Because it's Israel, because it's Palestine, it's kept one way. Israel is defending themselves. And the United States will not defend the Palestinians at all, no matter what. They have no influence in our Congress. Israel does, with the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, as well as 14th Street, J Street, the American Zionist Organization. And there are small organizations, Zionist organizations, that influence public perception of Israelis. Palestinians don't have that. So why is it always one-sided here in the States? Money and also blackmail. Israel doesn't have much money. So what they do is they use espionage to influence our elections, to keep our electors in Congress, our whores in Congress. And that's not an exaggeration, they're whores. They sold themselves out. And, you know, when you have espionage tactics like Israel does, and they're one of the best in the world, they can have these secrets on just about anybody. Isn't that what the Epstein ring was about? Was it just about sex slavery? It's the reason why he was videotaping these high-profile visitors to his houses, having sex with underage minors, because he could always use that against them, say, hey, your reputation in your life will be destroyed unless you give us some information. That's how espionage works. Blackmail works. And that's why the public perception of Israel will always be positive, tentatively positive, because the criticisms are outwardly condemned and very minimal. Ms. Bensouda gave Israel and the Palestinians until Friday to let the ICC know whether they were conducting their own investigations into possible crimes in the occupied territories. Israel, however, said it would not have anything to do with the case. Of course not. Israel absolutely rejects the claim that it's carried out war crimes, the Prime Minister's office said in a statement. Israel reiterates its unequivocal position, according to which the court in The Hague lacks the authority to open an investigation against it. The unacceptable interference of the court lacks any legal basis and contravenes the goal for which it was established, because Israel says the court has no jurisdiction over its territories in question, occupied by Israel since the 1967 Middle East War. Israel is not a member of the ICC. It asserts that the Palestinians do not qualify as a sovereign state and so lack the right to join. The ICC has ruled it has a mandate to investigate the occupied territories and has accepted the Palestinians after they were granted non-member observation state status at the United Nations. There you have it, folks. I don't need to go on any further. As you can see, the definitions, and you should get familiar with these, because if you live in the United States, if you live in Israel, If you're part of the 6 countries, not part of the international criminal courts, and they are conducting war crimes, find out why, and become familiar with the war crimes definitions outlined by the Rome Statutes. And Israel is guilty of all 4. At least 3 of the 4. At least 3 of the 4. And their actions are doing it, whether it's recent or in the past. And this will continue if the international theater, the public perception, continues to ignore what is going on. And we need more level heads to speak out on it. What we don't need are these right-wing demagogues and all these left-wing fanatics who just hate Israel. We don't need none of this. We need people who care about reporting honestly, and who care about crimes against humanity happening under their watch. And the United States is privy to it because they know what's going on and they're doing nothing. So we need the public to speak out on it, more people. All right, guys. Have a good day. See you in the next video.